Hi and good morning. In today's video, we're going to discuss the state of the market again. And I also want to talk about narratives and coins that you maybe can still buy and make profit in this market cycle. As we have been discussing in the latest videos, my belief is that we will have still the bull run coming in some weeks. So I estimate it to start at the end of September, maybe earlier, maybe middle of September, so in 1 to 2 weeks. And then it should last until, could be middle of October, could be end of November. Everything is possible. It's also possible that the cycle lasts into the first quarter of 2026. We cannot just take the halving cycles or business cycles or any cycles we had till now, because the investment sentiment has changed now, meaning that before, especially in Bitcoin, we used to have a much lower market cap. And this is much easier than for retail investors to pump up the price. If you have a small market cap, retail investors can come in and move markets with hundred thousands or millions of dollars. At the moment, the market cap is getting higher and higher. It's over $1 trillion, as you know. And for that kind of money, so if you just have millions flowing into some assets that are already bigger, it doesn't really make a price impact. At the moment, it is around 3% price movement in Bitcoin in the case of the inflow of 1 million. Meaning that if 1 billion, did I say million or billion? So it's billion. So if 1 billion flows into Bitcoin, the price moves 3%. And we have been discussing that the big players are picking now up on the game. They are used to play already for decades in stocks and other assets. They're coming into the market and liquidating retail investors, and they know how to play the game because they have very sophisticated software and AI tools to help them to have an edge, no matter if this is up or down. So they're going short, they're liquidating people up and down. So this is the state of the market. Our tool, Market PKI, suggests market cycle and market top for Bitcoin 29th of November, risk score 52 at the moment. So we will see. If you ask yourself now, are you too late or what can I still buy? Well, you really have to look in very detail at all the assets, because for some assets, I believe it does not make any sense anymore to get into this asset. And these are mainly assets that have been running hard already. This is a difficult decision, right? So because we are at the really end, so the last quarter probably of the Bitcoin, or of all the cycle development, many assets that have been running already or don't fulfill the narrative anymore have no chance to run very well. So you could let's go down the market cap a little and discuss some of the coins. What about Bitcoin? Bitcoin, so I believe, like most of the people that have been in the industry for quite some time and have digged into the data a little more, that Bitcoin will at least go to 150,000. If you look in our tool, the Market PKI, you can see that we are estimating a low market peak price and a high one. And I'm not quite sure what it is at the moment, but I think you're calculating the low one at about 148, the middle one at 170 something, and then the high one 205 or something like that. This could have been changed from the last time I've been checking it. But this is the price point basically. So you have to know for yourself. You can still get into Bitcoin, of course, if you decide to do so, but it is quite limited. I mean, for a crypto investor, right? Depending what you want to achieve. Because if you want to make 10x or even more, then this asset, so Bitcoin, for example, is not the right asset for you. But if you want to have like a more solid, safer bet, this can still run, as you see, because you can still make loads of money. The other question is then, what are you doing if the price goes up to 150 or even more? Are you going to keep it or not? So in this case, I would recommend to you that you sell it at a high point. Why is that? Because if you buy it now around 110, the thing is that it's probably the case that Bitcoin will drop down from 150 or even higher below your entry price. This is very much relevant because if you have bought Bitcoin very early, so let's say you have bought it for 70,000 or even earlier, then you probably can stomach the drop to, let's say, 100 or whatever it will be, right? But if you're investing now, the question is this very wise of you to do so? So you need to understand what you're doing, right? So I would suggest to you, if you go into the Bitcoin stack now, that you sell it at the peak, then you wait until it drops, and very likely it drops below your entry price that you have now. And what you can do then is you can buy much more Bitcoin as soon the bear market starts. Remember, you always buy in the bear market. You don't buy in the bull market like most of the people. You need to buy when there's fear in the market and blood on the street, as the saying is, right? So don't make this mistake. What about Ethereum? I would say Ethereum is quite the same. Probably it will, I'm not sure if it will drop as heavy. It will probably be very similar to Ethereum, meaning that you have to keep in mind that Ethereum just some weeks ago broke the all-time high. After the all-time high was reached, it dropped down. So again, if you buy it now, you have to know that you're buying it near an all-time high. It will go up to, I don't know what it will be, 5,000, 6,000 probably. But it's also very likely that it crashes back. Yes, institutions are heavily jumping into Ethereum now. We know that some institutions are even skipping the Bitcoin play because they think they're too late. For some institutions, it is very attractive that they now understand that Ethereum is like a network and they can build on it, and different applications can build on it, and you can use the Ethereum layer 1 as security layer, and then you can build another layer on it to still be able to self-custody or have no counterparty risk or stuff like that. So they are jumping in now. But I've yesterday seen a video of Tommy Lee that I want to discuss with you regarding Ethereum. So it was quite strange for me to hear what he was saying, because what he was saying is actually that everybody will jump now on Ethereum and everything will be on Ethereum, and you know, everybody will pay with it and smart contracts here and that. But have you lately tried to use Ethereum? So I was very surprised that still sometimes fees are so high that it's not usable for most of the cases, right? Yes, there are other solutions now. You can pay with other assets. You can pay for your users and so on. But as long the transactions are still over $1 or even much, much higher in some cases, it's actually not usable, right? So this is why I think our next coin that we talk about, Solana, will also have a bright future. Also, they're discussing that Ethereum will be the next token that will tokenize everything. But also in this case, be a little careful. It may be true that a lot of big companies, big players will tokenize on Ethereum because they like the stable, environment. They like the staked coins. They like the safe environment, the established environment. Solana is much newer, but also we need to remember is that most of the assets that have been tokenized for the stock market, or almost all of them, I think 90% are on Solana. And I'm talking about things like X stocks. So they just took, I think at the moment it's 40 stocks that are just tokenized, and you can actually go to Jupiter and trade these assets as you would trade regular stocks. So you have, for example, Apple there, Microsoft, and so on. As crypto investor, you can just buy these X stocks, and it's like you would have to have a brokerage account. You don't need one. You just go there and you have the stocks. This is really great. So, and this is happening all on Solana. And you know that actually there is, I'm not remembering the name, but there's this high frequency trading company that is actually working together with Solana. And in high frequency trading, it's very important how close you are to the network, how close you are to the servers. And Solana is now starting to roll out a system where they use fiber cables to be much faster. So they're, so to say, building up their own internet so they can handle all these financial transactions very, very fast and also cheap. So keep that in mind. So Solana, this is probably a higher bet or a better bet if you go into Solana now. Solana is not at the all-time high. I think it was at 250 or something, like, or even at 300. I can't remember it anymore because it was such a long time ago, and it had quite a lot of pain, Solana, right? So if you buy Solana now, you will have quite a good upside, I would say. I see it possible that it goes to, I don't know, 1K maybe in this cycle. But again, it could drop quite heavily back, right? So these are the bigger plays. If the retail investors will come in, and we have discussed this one time, but I want to emphasize it again. A retail investor, which does not have that much impact on the market anymore, but still has got impact, they will come in and look at a coin index list like CoinMarketCap, and they will, for example, go through the list, see, oh, Bitcoin, look how expensive. Then they will go Ethereum, oh, too expensive. Solana, yeah, but also too expensive. BNB, too expensive. Then they will see XRP. Then they say, oh, hey, I can buy like thousands of them and I get rich, because people don't understand that it's not really about the price. You have to look at market cap, you have to look at the team, you have to look at all the things to understand if this can make you money. But a lot of times it will be that people want to own really one whole coin, right? And in Bitcoin, for most of the people, this is not possible. And I don't think that people understand the Satoshi idea. There's even bigger people like Peter Schiff and so on that don't understand how that works, like with the Satoshis. Maybe they think it's like with gold, and gold you can't really separate. If you need to, you can't cut it up. So they don't understand that there's Satoshis. So users can, of course, buy their Satoshis and stack Satoshis, and maybe one day get to 1 Bitcoin. That would be great for them, right? So these are the top coins. If you really want to have the opportunity to make more profits, in my eyes, you need to understand what will probably run in the next cycle. And this is quite difficult because the cycle is very limited. At the moment, I don't see a heavy narrative. A narrative, in the moment we have this world liberty finance stuff going on. Maybe that's an opportunity. It's very hard for me to understand what they're actually really doing. I watched a long video yesterday where the founders of World Liberty Finance explain the token and the stablecoin. And also in this case, it's quite strange. Some things they're saying, I don't get it. Maybe you can write it in the comment, because they are, for example, saying they want to on-bank everybody and they have a community behind the stablecoin and so on. But they're also saying that they want to protect people from inflation and so on. And yes, this is true, but this is true for every stablecoin. But this is also very untrue. This depends on the country where you're living in. If you are in the US, or if you are in Europe, or if you're in a developed country, let's say, then your inflation is quite, it's still high. Yeah. It will be probably around 10%. They will tell you it's 2%, but you know how they put together the baskets, the inflation baskets, right? They just swap out goods. I tried to find a video and we'll link it. It's really fascinating what they're doing. So like sometimes they are, changing out goods. Sometimes they're just taking another food or another toothbrush. So to make that the basket will actually stay low, but it's much, lower quality items in the basket. Then they just, exclude energy, exclude basically everything you need for living, right? And then they give you this core number and whatever. So it's strange. So what I wanted to say with the stablecoin things, if you're in the US and you store your money in a stablecoin, it's the same. Like it's the inflation, because the stablecoin is backed by US dollars, or if you have a euro stablecoin, or if you have a stablecoin in any other currency, then basically you are losing money. Maybe if you are in a different country, then you can use it. So, for example, if US citizens would have been in the euro, like starting a year ago, they would have made quite a good profit, because the euro dollar is very out of balance, right? So the dollar is really losing in value. But of course, the stablecoin has a value for somebody living in Zimbabwe or in any of these countries where money inflates much faster, because then he will have, instead of 50% inflation per year, he will have just 10 or something. So for these people, it makes sense. But still, we need to be a little careful about stablecoins, because it's programmable money, right? And programmable money can be used for many things, and it can also be used for things that will make you very unfree. Keep that in mind. Other narratives I've seen very interesting use cases, basically for collectibles, meaning that, for example, there's companies popping up now that will actually store your Pokemon card, store your baseball card, or all this valuable, there's a lot of valuable cards that people collect. They will take these cards, put in a special vault, so they lock it up like a Fort Knox vault, and then you get an NFT. And the advantage of all this setup is basically that when the card comes into the vault, there will be some expert really checking if this is the original, and then they lock it away. So this fulfills a lot of needs. So if you have ever been trading this kind of cards, for the buyer, it's very hard to figure out if this is, fake, or if this is realistic, how the condition is, and so on, right? And also for the keeper, it's very difficult to keep it in a place where, the paper is not getting, eaten up by bugs, or, by the air and so on. So, and you will have your assets, so the baseball cards or whatever, in this storage. They will take care of it. You get an NFT, and this NFT is representing your asset, and it has a value. So now, instead of trading these physical things, you don't need to trade physical things anymore. You have the digital version, and it just it stays in the vault. And if the new buyer wants to get it, he just goes there and or tells them to send it, and he will be able to authorize all this stuff because he has the NFT. So this is very interesting. It could be applied to everything. Could be applied to gold. It could be applied to paintings. Could be applied to everything that is actually of value, and it needs to be locked away. And could do it even with cars. You can do it with everything, right? So this is quite an interesting narrative. But I think we are too late in the cycle for this narrative. So it's slowly starting to get traction, but very slowly. So I'm not sure if we will be at the point where users will see and hype into that, so the price will still shoot up. Gaming is also something that is way overdue to go up. We have been waiting for the gaming coins in the last cycle already to shoot up, but unfortunately it did not happen. So there's a lot of gaming projects, like also the super token that they have. They made a lot of very good connections, and they have really built out the ecosystem, and they're waiting now since years and years and years. So the time for gaming should have been already quite some time ago. But still here, I'm not sure. If you have still gaming tokens, I would hold them and see what the market peak brings. And then it's always the question, right? The problem is with this kind of project, if you hold older projects from other cycles, now especially with AI, it's very likely that some other competitor comes in and replaces basically this asset, because at the date where the old asset that you're still holding was built, there was none such of these opportunities. And very likely the industry has changed so much over the latest years that maybe there's no use case anymore, or there's much more competitors or much better competitors, or something has changed. You know what I mean? So the longer you hold a project, the more unlikely it is that the project takes off if they don't have a good business model, and if they don't have a way to fund themselves very heavily, because otherwise they cannot do any development. If you're just setting up this company and you wait for 4 or 5 years, but you don't have any inflows, and maybe you're holding most of the assets in Ethereum, and Ethereum went down very heavily, and you need to pay all your team, you need to pay for the office and so on, then probably it's very hard for these coins to make it. So it's difficult. At the moment, I discussed this in one of the other videos. If you're already down 99%, 98, 95%, you have to ask yourself if you want to sell it now, if this actually makes any difference, if you get out this 1% or 5% of the coin, right? So maybe it's not worth the hassle, and maybe you just wait. If you're lucky, at the end of the cycle, if everything runs up, then it could be that actually your assets that you're holding for a longer time also run up. But in general, it doesn't make a lot of sense to hold many assets, because if you need to do your due diligence, right? So you need to know quite a lot about the asset. You need to know how is the asset developing. Are there still, programming on it? Are there still activities? What partnerships are they doing? Did they pivot? Is this still what you support? Do you still believe in the project? How active are they on X or other platforms? So it's very important that you monitor your project. If you have 30, 40, 50, 100 projects, it's not possible. Yeah, it is possible, but then you need some sophisticated tools, and have alerts, so you know that maybe this is not the coin anymore that you want to have. So a lot of decisions to make. At the moment, you should prepare, meaning if you have assets staked somewhere and you know that you actually want to sell them, make sure to unstake them soon, because some of the assets have a cooldown period, or you can't unstake them. You need 7 days or 14 days to unstake them. And then the problem is it could be too late, right? It will not be too late in 7 days or 14 days, because then the bull market can't run that fast to, be at the peak in 7 or 14 days. But I'm just saying, if you don't do it early enough, let's say you wait until, I don't know, until it's really very hot, the market already, we have extreme greed, and then you decide you want to sell, but then you recover or discover that, oh, no, I forgot I have been staking these assets, and you need to wait maybe 7 days, and maybe if you're not lucky, then you're missing the top, because then you can't unstake, you can't sell it. Maybe lots of people want to then unstake, and it takes even longer. So keep that in mind. Now is the time where you need to prepare. So I'm not buying anything anymore since many weeks. I have prepared my portfolio in the bear market, most of my assets. So I'm not doing anything anymore. I'm just watching the charts. I'm looking at the horizontal lines. I'm looking at the levels that the assets could break, and I'm just monitoring in what direction it goes. And I have made sure that I can act when I need to, and we will see how everything goes. If you want, leave in the comment what kind of assets you want to discuss. You can discuss some assets if you like to. And I hope that video was useful. Like always, if you're interested in more data about the bull market and when it probably ends, you go down and click on the link Market Peak AI. It's a free version where you can see all the data. It's 7 days delayed, but you can see all the 34 indicators that we are using to predict when the top is in. I see you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.